Hey everyone, I'm Marina McKean. Welcome to our interview series Behind the Byline, where we get a glimpse behind the curtain at the fantastic writers who contribute to our team. Joining me today is Rob Latham. Let's kick things off.
Hi Marina, how are you?
Hi Rob, I'm doing good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Really good.
Ready to jump on in? We got some good questions for you today.
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. Okay, first up, what got you into the world of content marketing?
So I've always been interested in writing, way back to when I was at school, and thinking about what I wanted to do as a career back then. I originally wanted to be a journalist. I did work placements with a few local newspapers. I did a postgrad degree in journalism before my first proper role, which was as a reporter in like a local newspaper in the Cotswolds. Back then, I wanted to be a sports journalist, and I got a chance to work with like a professional rugby team when I was reporting. So I got to interview like international rugby players and the manager. But then the money in journalism wasn't great back then. So I moved into PR. Actually, I first went to Canada. I went traveling in Canada and worked at the Winter Olympics. And then while I was over there, I helped set up a music blog for basically focusing on new bands in Vancouver. I always had a focus on the writing side of it rather than the media relations side of it. So I always had a focus on writing. So I did about 6 years in PR and then got a job with a marketing agency where I became a content manager, working with some big tech brands, and really got a taste for doing technology writing. After about 2 years with them, I realized I could do it myself. So I decided to quit and started freelancing as a writer. I decided to travel the world as well. So I thought I can combine both things. So I can start my own company, but then also go and travel as well. I went and traveled around South America and Asia. And then COVID hit and I came back home, but I carried on the writing. So it's been about 5 years now freelancing. So I've been working with ClearVoice for about 4 years of that. So yeah, that's kind of a long-winded journey of how it went from journalism into writing for myself.
No, that's awesome. That is actually a great lead into some of our questions a little bit later. I think we're going to
Yeah.
touch on a couple of really cool things in there. But next question for you. What tools and techniques do you use to conduct research and gather insights about the topics that you write about?
I think the big one is probably just looking at the company themselves. So when I write for a new company, I'll go away and look at their content they've already written. So things like their press releases, their case studies, and try and gain insights into what they actually do, why companies work with them, and how they help customers. But I'll go and do my own research as well. So looking at what their competitors are saying, and looking for trends in the market, looking at industry research. I think particularly in technology, looking at research from the likes of Gartner and Forrester to look at like what the trends are in the market. So in the past, I've also written research reports that require industry stats. So I think just going away and digging into those trends is really useful for writing those reports.
Awesome. Perfect. And you actually just answered the next question I had for you, which is how do you stay up to date with the latest trends and developments in the industries you work with? So, is there
Yeah,
anything else you do when you are doing research on trends that maybe advice you could give, anything like that?
yeah. I think looking for stats is the main one for me. Looking for things that Gartner and that those guys are saying. So I've recently been writing about trends about people buying foreign properties. So I've had to go away and look at the trends of how things have picked up since COVID, like how spending trends are changing and evolving as people become more confident in the housing market. So the other thing I do is I have like a news tab in my Google Chrome browser. So I'll have tabs full of media for technology media, and I used to write about life sciences and farmers quite a lot. So I've got a tab linking to like New Scientist and Fierce Pharma and those kinds of companies as well. So I use those just to go and find out what's happening in the world. And yeah, I find that quite useful too.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. And we mentioned a handful of industries. Is there a specific one that you're maybe super passionate about writing for?
I think the main one over the last few years has probably been cybersecurity, especially during COVID, writing about like working from home, remote working, that kind of stuff. Loads of content about what kind of tools you need to work effectively from home, how to be safe working from home, that kind of stuff. More recently, AI has been a really big topic for me, talking about how we can work with AI and how it can help people be more effective rather than taking their jobs. How can it actually help us be more effective in our jobs and in our roles? But I've written about all sorts of random topics like telecoms, different technology topics, electric bikes, healthcare. Those are the kinds of things I like writing about because they're different and I can research them. And yeah.
Do you have an article that you've written that resonated with an audience in perhaps a way that you didn't expect?
Yeah, so I think this is one of the main challenges with being a freelance writer. A lot of the time, the stuff I write is ghostwritten, so I don't get to see it. But one of the recent articles I wrote was, well, wasn't that recent actually, but it was my client wanted me to write a song based on the 12 days of Christmas. So like that kind of it followed that theme, but then based on AI. So it's like the 12, I can't remember the exact title, it was like the 12 benefits of AI for your company. So I think seeing reaction to that was quite cool. It was just a little bit different and no one else is doing anything like that. So yeah,
Yeah, what a
it
cool
was definitely
concept.
different. Yeah,
I
it
love
was. Yeah,
it.
it was interesting. Really difficult to write actually as well. But yeah,
Yeah, I bet because it is so different.
yeah.
That's very cool.
Mm.
Perfect. And next question for you. We've actually touched on this a couple of times already, but 5 years ago, you decided to quit your job, start your own business, and travel the world. What is one piece of advice that you would give someone who's thinking about doing the same?
I think the big thing for me is to not worry about things too much and not worry about if you don't. I go through peaks and troughs all the time where I'll have loads of work one week, not as much work the next week, or then have 2 weeks where it's like, oh, I'm a bit worried and things are a bit slow. But try as hard as you can just to get new work coming in, but then also have some kind of balance, going out and exploring, but then also setting aside time to work or try and find new business, find a new cafe or find a workspace you can go and work from. Because anywhere you go in the world, you can find a workspace like WeWork or basically don't let yourself just put work, work, work. Kind of take some time away, meet new people who are doing similar things to work with. I think that's one of the key things for me. It was it can be really hard to be in a foreign place,
Yeah.
especially if you don't know the language. So like I spent a bit of time in South America, didn't speak any Spanish, but I had people around me who were doing a similar thing, who were like either American or British, who I could go and hang out with or go and work with, bounce ideas off, go for a coffee with them, and it just took my mind off work. I think that's one of the key things as well, like having people around you.
That's great. Yeah. I feel like it doesn't matter where you are or what you're doing. Community is just so important and finding that community. That's great advice. So, you also did tell us that you've been working for a company that advises ultra high net worth individuals on getting the best deals on super yachts, super cars, and luxury homes. What is it like to create content for that audience? And have you learned anything unique about that world that stands out to you?
Oh, well, you need to have a lot of money. That's the main thing I would say. But it's really interesting because even though you think all these people are super rich, they can just afford to buy anything they want. In a way, they don't want to because it doesn't really help them to do that. So a lot of them want to try and get the best deal they can, and they want to pay as little as they can as well at the same time. That's why they've got so much money, I think. Yeah, I learned a lot about how you buy a car. Was quite interesting in terms of actually buying a supercar. So a lot of people don't just go out and buy. They don't just go out and say, "Here's $5 million for the latest car." They want to finance it in the most appropriate way. They want to build up portfolios of properties. That's how they accumulate wealth, I guess. It's a really interesting topic to write about because it's completely different to anything I've ever known. With some items, as soon as you buy it, it completely loses value, so it plummets in value. Um,
Right.
so it's by making the right decisions and buying the right products, which is then when you need people to advise you on what you should be buying or what you shouldn't be buying and how you should be buying it. That's probably the main thing I learned is that you need really good advice on what you should be buying.
Everyone likes a good deal, right?
Exactly, yeah. So even if you've got like the most money in the world, you want to get it as cheap as possible.
Perfect. You also mentioned that in your spare time, you've been focusing on sports and gaming. Can you tell us a
Hmm.
little bit about the football or soccer here in America game
Hmm.
that you've been playing and writing about, and maybe what got you so excited? about turning your experience into a blog?
So there's a big trend on YouTube where people like play games and people watch it, which seems like a weird thing. But I noticed there's people doing that, and they're watching videos on YouTube, but there's no one was really writing blogs about it. So I decided to start my own blog, writing about the kind of adventures that my fictional manager got into. I kind of turn the gaming experience into a story, and it kind of follows on like week after week. I kind of take it a season at a time. It probably sounds really boring and nerdy, but it's quite fun. It's just like a hobby that I do and then turn it into a story. It gives me a bit of practice for writing stories as well. So
Yeah. You have to have that one thing that you're passionate about writing for. And I think it's very cool that you're kind of ahead of your time on this one. So,
thanks.
and then finally, what are your future goals or aspirations as a content writer and strategist?
Yeah, I think that's like the $1 million question for anyone who works for themselves, especially as a content writer. I think especially as technology is evolving as well, I think it's quite challenging. But I'm really keen to keep doing what I'm doing. I really enjoy writing about really random topics. The last few weeks, I have been thinking about other areas I could get into. So I was recently in New Zealand, and there's a really big push there around green energy and solar energy. So that got me thinking I could maybe try and write about that, and then maybe looking at other areas I can write about, just try and diversify. I was actually watching one of these videos the other day, and they were talking about networking and making new contacts and talking to other freelancers, which is something I've not really done. I love working for myself. I love having the freedom. I love being able to travel whenever I want to and work from different places in the world. And yeah, I like to keep doing it.
Rob, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be back with more interviews with these dynamic writers and industry leaders. To learn more about our amazing content specialists, visit clearvoice.com.